You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
You know, we have a tremendous force going in Venezuela right now. We're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could. Those were direct threats against Iran from US President Donald Trump off the Arabian Sea. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group began approaching the territory of this Islamic nation from across the Atlantic. The Air Force also moved into the Middle East. Everything seemed to be set up for a massive demonic bombing raid. So the question now is, if war actually breaks out, how would the US attack Iran? Following the overthrow of the Palatine monarch, Iran transformed from an ally into an enemy of Washington in the Middle East. Not only did the country eliminate the pro-American regime, but it also aggressively developed its nuclear program. That poses a direct threat to the United States and its allies in the region. Therefore, they imposed a series of economic sanctions on Iran. However, Tehran remains determined to stick to. In response to this situation, Washington has recently taken tougher measures. Specific. On 25, the US launched Operation Midnight Hammer, striking nuclear facilities deep within Iranian territory. Although this attack inflicted significant damage on the opponent, it did not address the root of the problem. Approximately 400 kilos of 6% crude oil producing uranium was moved from the Islamic Republic's facilities months ago. Tehran still possesses the capability to produce weapons of mass destruction. If they continue refining the oil to increase the uranium content to 90%, they could build at least 9 nuclear bombs. That is, wants to return to thoroughly address this threat. Furthermore, the Trump administration also harbored ambitions to destroy Iran's defense industry. For a long time, this country has consistently provided missiles and UAVs to forces fighting against Israel, a close ally of the United States. The most prominent are Hezbollah and Hamas. Despite suffering heavy losses at the hands of the Israeli army, they continue to harass the Israelis through guerrilla warfare. This means that the Israeli defense forces always have to be more vigilant in responding. If Iran's military bases are destroyed, Islamist militant groups will lose their weapons supply in the war against Avid. Furthermore, the US also wants to limit the influence of both Russia and China in the Middle East. Both countries are currently seeking to support Iran in accelerating its nuclear program. In addition, they are also a supplier of weapons that helps Tehran enhance its defensive capabilities. This directly challenges the order established by the United States in the region. President Trump is seeking to act quickly to prevent Iran from achieving its nuclear goals. The current situation is very favorable for. Previous anti-government protests had been breaking out repeatedly in the capital Tehran. In cities like Maz and Isfahan, thousands of people took to the streets, clashing directly with police and Islamic revolutionary forces. Although the protests have been temporarily suppressed, they have demonstrated that the Iranian people are dissatisfied with the government. President Trump did not miss the opportunity to threaten and criticize the theocratic government of the Kini cleric. An attack at this time could reignite the wave of protests and lead to riots. For all those reasons, the United States needed to quickly overthrow the theocratic state in order to resolve all the problems. By deploying an aircraft carrier to the Saudi Arabian coast, the Trump administration has prepared for a war in the near future. The Americans now possess a variety of options for attacking Iran. One of these was using Delta Special Forces to raid Tehran and capture Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Earlier this year, this unit infiltrated Caracas and captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Now, via this teleconference, the Trump administration can deploy special forces at West Ali and Salem Air Base. This location is quite close to Tehran, approximately 680 km direct flight. There, Black Hawk helicopters would carry Delta Force soldiers across the strait and infiltrate enemy territory. However, Iran's capital is located deep inland, too. Get here. The American forces had to overcome a dense defensive barrier including various types of surface-to-air missile. Some notable examples are the S-300 and the Bava 373. Both possess a range of 150-300 km and a speed exceeding that of the Mach 6, capable of shooting down American helicopters. In addition, Iran's ground forces are also equipped with shoulder-mounted anti-aircraft missiles, like the Misak. This weapon has an operational range of 5 to 6, sufficient to shoot down Black Hawk squadrons at Viet Nam. Even though the Americans gained access to Kane's residence, they still faced the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which had over 1,000 regular troops deployed throughout the territory. This force is more than capable of overwhelming smaller special forces teams. Even if the Americans successfully apprehend him, they still need to factor in the return flight distance to accomplish that. The victorious side would have to refuel directly in enemy airspace. However, refueling aircraft, which are slow-moving and have a large radar cross-section, easily become easy targets for Iranian missile. If the US cannot reach Tehran with special force, it may eliminate this notorious cult leader altogether. Thanks to information from Israeli newspapers, they were able to pinpoint the leader's location. Then, my Ben, clad in a B-2, will carry out airstrike targeting his. This was entirely possible because Moses had deeply infiltrated the inner workings of the Catholic Church. Proof of this is there. Knowledge of the whereabouts of 30 high-ranking officials during the 12-day war last year. Thanks to this information, the Israeli Air Force was able to eliminate a portion of the Iranian leadership right in their own homes. However, assassinating the Kenyan leader carried many risks. Although Iranians are currently dissatisfied with the government, they remain loyal followers of Islam. The US killing him would be a devastating blow to the faith of millions of believers across the country. From then on, instead of rebelling against the state, the people united and turned against Washington. They could elect a new religious leader with more radical political views than their predecessor. If this actually happens, the Middle East is likely to descend into instability beyond the White House's control. From a country that wasn't hostile towards the US but was still willing to negotiate, Iran will shift to a completely hostile attitude. They will relentlessly pursue the nuclear threat, while simultaneously opening the door for Russia and China to gain a foothold in the Middle East. The Trump administration did not want this to happen. They need to consider other, less risky attack options. Instead of capturing or assassinating the Khmer Rouge leader, the US could launch airstrikes on military and nuclear bases. This option carries fewer political risks while still allowing Washington to doff Iran's resources. The U.S. currently has numerous bases in the region that allow for the rapid deployment of fighter jets. However, Trump would face obstacles from the allies if he wanted approval for the airstrikes. All of the countries that serve as allies of the US, such as Turkey, Russia, the Czech Republic, and are within the range of Iranian missiles. If they allow Washington to use their airspace as a launching pad for attacks, they will easily become targets of. To ensure the safety of their allies, the Americans had to choose different. For example, penetrating Iranian airspace from the north is an impractical route. At that time, the US Naval Task Force in the Arabian Sea acted as decoys to lure enemy force. Taking advantage of this opportunity, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers based in the United States began flying to Europe. Here, the B-2 group flew through the airspace of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan before entering Iranian territory. Thanks to their range of 11,000 km, they can attack the entire territory of the Islamic. The first targets would be the Natan, Isfahan, and Fordo nuclear facilities, with GBU-57 B-2 bunker busting bombs capable of completely destroying these underground plants. Furthermore, even the capital Tehran and its surrounding military base complex, including Parachin and Fat, are within their sights. Attacking these targets creates chaos around Iran's political center. As a result, the protest movement spread even further. After destroying B-2 has to exit enemy airs. First, they could retrace their original route back to Europe. The second option is to fly south and then travel out into the Indian Ocean. However, the offensive from Europe still runs the risk of failure. The reason is that when flying into Georgian, Armenian, and Azerbaijani airspace, the B-2 has to evade Russian radar detection. Moscow could detect it first and then report it to its allies. Information from Russia helped Tehran proactively prepare countermeasures. They will deploy F-14 or Mi-29 interceptor fighters to patrol the area of suspicion. If B-2s are spotted, fighter jets must quickly approach them. Because they are not designed for close-range dogfighting, American stealth bombers would be easily shot down, even without Iran needing to intercept them directly. The fact that they had already deployed fighter jets in the sky deterred the Americans from advancing further. Instead, will be ordered to withdraw to avoid an unplanned confrontation. Furthermore, the attack route from Europe still presents another problem. Specific, American stealth aircraft are unlikely to be able to maintain combat intensity for extended periods. The B-2s tasked with destroying nuclear facilities carried only 2 CB-57 armor-piercing bombs. The remaining ones were equipped with 80 JD bombs. But that wasn't enough to attack a large number of military targets. This makes it difficult for the Trump administration's original plans to be fully realized. However, it is difficult to say for certain whether Russia intervened to help Iran. Instead of completely eliminating this option, the American profession could combine it with other lines of attack in the Middle East. The U.S. Air Force has deployed more than 30 refueling aircraft to Jordan. They are capable of supplying fuel to large squadrons, including bombers and fighter jets. If the attack is launched from Jordan, the B-2 will no longer have to fly alone but will receive support from the F-20-35. Both are 5th-generation stealth fighter jets that completely outperform the F-14 and Mi on the opposing side. In addition, they also support the B-2 in attacking ground targets. If President Trump approves the deployment of aircraft from Jordan, the American planes would enter Iraqi airspace en route to western Iran. This country does not possess modern radar systems like the Russians. It was very difficult for them to detect the American stealth squadron. In addition, Iraq is trying to maintain good economic and military relations with Washington. Even if they had news of the American attack, they would have to think carefully before incorporating it into their tradition. Furthermore, the Trump administration could exert pressure to keep the bat quiet. After crossing Iraqi territory, the squadron would penetrate Iranian airspace. At this time, a vast area, stretching from Qasr to Tehran and Natan, was within the range of American bombing. F-35s and B-2s carrying JD bombs were tasked with bombing military airfields in Hamadan along with the XFA. Due to the surprise attack, the Iranian fighter jet had difficulty taking off in time. Most of them will be destroyed while still on the runway and hangar. However, it is possible that Iran will send fighter jets on patrol before a U.S. attack. At this time, the F-22 had to shirk its responsibility of dominating the sky, thanks to their superior maneuverability. Compared to the F-14, the Raptor tanks are capable of taking down the enemy. Once the Iranian Air Force has been successfully destroyed, the B-2 aircraft carrier G will destroy the remaining nuclear facilities. At the end of the operation, they return to the Iraqi border to go back to Jordan. However, this line of attack still has a weakness that the Americans must consider. Specific, Washington once sent B-2 bombers over Iraq to attack Iran in Operation Midnight Hammer. Team learned from experience and deployed a dense air defense force in the when American aircraft open their weapons bays to attack. The original elongated shape that helps reduce their SATA cross-section will change. The stealth feature is no longer optimal at this point. Urban radar pick up clearer signals from the enemy. Based on that, they will unleash a barrage of anti-aircraft fire to attack the area. For this reason, there is little guarantee that the American stealth squadron will return intact. Losing F or F-35s over enemy territory would be a disaster for Washington. Iran may seize American aircraft for technological research, and may even share this information with Russia and China. Some of the materials used in the construction of American stealth aircraft remain highly classified. For example, radar-absorbing coating. If Moscow and North King gain access to them, they will significantly narrow the technological gap with their rivals. Most importantly, Tehran could take the pilots hostage to exert leverage against Washington. The U.S. media will exploit this and then fan the flames of domestic protest. If that happens, all of the Trump administration's military plans targeting Iran will be ruined. Despite the risk, this remains a viable course of action if it occurs after the Navy in the Arabian Sea has inflicted damage on the enemy's air defenses. The U.S. deployed a strike group, including the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and Alibert-class destroyers right on Iranian territory. Part of this unit's strength comes from hundreds of Tomahawk missiles, with a range of 1,600 to 2,000. Despite their near supersonic speed and vulnerability to intercept, they are often launched. This would overwhelm the enemy's air defense system. The remaining power source comes from dozens of F-18 Super Hornet aircraft on the aircraft carrier. They also possess significant ground and air strike capabilities thanks to JDAM bombs and ion missile protecting that missile battery were E-18 Growler electronic warfare aircraft. Their mission is to jam air defense radars and destroy these systems using AGMH anti-radiation missiles. Despite possessing comprehensive offensive capabilities, the carrier strike group is still not strong enough to penetrate deep into Iranian territory. They need to coordinate with the B-2 squadron at Diego Garcia Island in the Indian Ocean. AM has been attacked. Loma will be fired at the Homosan provinces fast, or after the Namaran anti-aircraft missile system is neutralized. The Lincoln aircraft carrier will immediately launch aircraft, but the Brawler will utilize its electronic countermeasures capabilities to destroy the remaining NATO simultaneously. Supernet aircraft carried out a series of attacks on military facilities on the ground. At this time, the B-2 stealth fighter jets were also approaching Iran from the direction of the Dieja base. From there they continued flying north to carry out the final airstrikes targeting remaining nuclear and military facilities. If necessary, this squadron could attack the capital city as well. When the missiles run out of bombs, the fighter jet will reload on the aircraft carrier and then continue to participate in combat. They were capable of returning to Diego Garcia to re-equip their weapons after the assault. Thanks to this abundant supply of firepower, Washington was free to bombard southern and central Iran, plunging nearly half the country. Tur had to simultaneously fend off attacks and cope with the wave of protests. They would find it very difficult to retaliate in kind against the blows from the U.S. Air defense systems are overwhelmed and unable to rely on their own flight capabilities and electronic warfare aircraft. Meanwhile, interceptor fighter jets also find it difficult to maintain the Iranian airports are all within the range of U.S. satellite surveillance and are among the first targets of attack. The government could even escalate the conflict to a full-scale war. To achieve this, they could rally Western allies to join the public interest. All of this would lead to a full-scale airstrike targeting the entire territory of Iran. In addition, the U.S. could call for further support from the Israeli Air Force. According to AV, they will take this opportunity to eliminate their strongest rival in the Middle East. However, the U.S. needs to carefully consider the implications of escalating tensions. If the attack is too forceful, Iran could resort to extremist arson instead of seeking negotiations. The Kent's regime now possesses many effective methods of counter-revolution. These include both large-scale military and economic measures aimed at causing immediate negative impacts on the opponent. The U.S. military owns 8 bases in Aris. They are all within the range of Iranian ballistic missiles. Even if the U.S. manages to evacuate troops and weapons in time to limit casualties, the destruction of infrastructure still results in significant strategic losses. Rebuilding a base in an unstable security environment often requires a great deal of time and financial resources. If this happens, the U.S. will temporarily lose the ability to deploy a rapid response force in the Gulf region. Furthermore, Iran also attack U.S. special Israel, for the Israeli state is like an extension of Washington's arm, helping it control the Copper Axis. If Israel is placed on the list of targets for retaliation, the U.S. will have to increase both arms and economic aid to help them defend themselves. On the other hand, Iran also has the capability to expand its network of proxy forces. If war breaks out, these insurgent groups will intensify their sabotage of infrastructure and disrupt transportation routes, aiming to create political instability in many countries. Alongside its military ambitions, Iran has also turned the Strait of Hormuz into a tool for exerting economic pressure. More than 20% of the world's oil passes through this region, and the team could force them to stop flowing. They will deploy naval mines on anti-ship missile platforms and high-speed armed vessels to create a constant threat environment in the strait. This makes shipping and cargo insurance companies hesitant to significantly increase their service fee. Consequently, oil prices will skyrocket, leading to inflation and an energy crisis in many Western countries. This move could put reverse pressure on the Trump administration, forcing it to make concessions to Iran. The U.S. needs to carefully consider the intensity of its attacks if it doesn't want to pay a heavy price. If the White House doesn't plan carefully, tactical airstrikes could lead to an all-out war in the Middle East. If the airstrike actually takes place, its poisonous effects will not be limited to all of America's allies in the region could face retaliation from the Islamic State on both military and economic fronts. The Hormuz Strait is likely to be locked down, causing world oil prices to plummet. This forced energy-dependent countries in the Middle East to make concessions to Iran. Furthermore, military maneuvers from Washington could force Russia and China to intervene more deeply to support their ally. In a world tense with strategic competition, airstrikes become a catalyst for larger than expected changes. Did the U.S. really attack Iran? Let time